you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hey folks, it's Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the Iron Lady sings, that makes it official. Welcome to the big show. For 16 years, going on 17 years, nearly 2,300 episodes, we've been bringing the Chris Voss Show. Some of the most smartest people, the greatest minds, the CEOs, the billionaires, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the people who change and infect the world. Infect the world? What the hell's going on over here? Influence the world with their ideas, their books, their writings, their lessons of life, their teachings, and they come to you and they deliver it in this beautiful little bowl. It's like one of those Chinese crystal bowls, you know, one of those expensive things that has been around for 50 trillion years or something, from the Ming Dynasty or something, and they deliver it in this beautiful Chris Voss Show bowl. What the hell are we doing this for? And they serve it to you for free, too. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may buy advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. So we have an amazing young man on the show today. We're going to be talking about his insights and how you can multiply money and wealth, because who doesn't want to do that? That sounds like a good thing. I do that. I always do that with my checking account. I always know that whatever money is in the bank account, I have more checks than money, so therefore I can keep writing checks. Anyway, guys, go to goodreads.com for just Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com for just Chris Voss. I come up with this stuff right off the bat, and it still sucks. Anyway, we're talking about this fine gentleman about his latest book that just barely came out January 9th, 2025. It is called Financial Epiphany. Discover your ability to multiply money and reimagine your financial life. Scott Yamamura joins us on the show today. We're going to be talking to him about his insights, his experience, and how you can multiply your darn money. So you've got like $25 in your account right now. We're going to see if we can't take it to 75 or something. I don't know. I'm just joking. We're going to get into what he has to tell us. He is an expert in communication design with over 25 years of experience. He's the manager of video communications at a Fortune 15 company. Scott combines his technical expertise with a passion for creating compelling visual content. His mission exceeds beyond the screen. He became a certified financial coach in order to help individuals rethink their money by experiencing financial epiphany. I like waking up to that every morning when I check my PayPal account. By breaking down the complexities of personal finance into simple, actionable steps, he empowers people to take control of their financial future, achieve their goals, and ultimately find purpose in the journey of multiplying money. Welcome to the show, Scott. How are you?
Appreciate it, Chris. Good to be here. This is wonderful to be able to talk about this message with you.
Oh, I love the message you're sharing with people, because last time I checked, a lot of people need some money these days. So, Scott, give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Best place is financialepiphany.com. That's where it's at.
So give us a 30,000 overview of what's inside your new book. Is this multiplying money where I use the copier to make illegal counterfeit money? Is that how it works? No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that, folks.
There's other ways, Chris. So the first is identifying the problem that we're trying to solve here, right? You're an entrepreneur. Others are entrepreneurs that are listening. First, we got to identify the problem. The problem is many people are living paycheck to paycheck. Some would say up to 78%. 77% of us are in debt. It could be up to around $100,000 on average. There's the retirement crisis, the housing crisis, the student loan crisis. We are normalizing crises. They're just so normal for us.
Just a constant state of crisis. I think people kind of feel that right now.
Yeah. So, one other thing, there's a financial literacy test held by FINRA, and 37% of Americans can get 4 out of 5 correct. 37% are able to get a decent score on. So I mean, many do not understand financial basics. So that's part of the problem we're trying to solve here. My mom, growing up, she said to me, Scott, talking about money is like talking about your underwear. And what she meant by that was, hey, it's a private topic. Now we don't want to go out there and boast about our bank accounts, but if we don't talk about money, it's a taboo thing for some of these cultures or faiths or families that will say, that's a no-no. We don't talk about these things. It's private. But if we don't talk about it, we could potentially all be operating with money our whole lives in a suboptimal way alone. And I think we need to talk about it. So that's the issue. And what the book is about is it's telling every single individual out there that we have an ability to multiply money. Now, money we constantly think of in our culture as something that it's something to grow or accumulate, but it's a thing. And maybe I don't want to think about that thing, or maybe it's truly maybe not acceptable to be accumulating this thing, this money. Many of us are taught that maybe it's something you ignore later. When I make more money or I get a promotion, maybe I'll think about it later in life. But I flip that around in this book, Financial Epiphany, and I talk about how multiplying money is an ability that we have. We each have this ability. Now, if we're trying to solve this problem of financial issues and illiteracy and all these crises we're talking about, we really got to get another message out there, because if 80% of Americans just aren't getting it, we need another option to hear about. So I talk about being an ability, but not just an ability. Think about multiplying money like being an athlete. Now, if you think about NFL football players, they're at their prime around age 26. If you think about just other athletes like Olympic ice skaters, for instance, they're in their primes around their early 20s. And for many, many sports, we're in our primes around our early 20s. And the same is true for multiplying money, is that when we get that career started in our early 20s typically, and when we have the ability to invest and we combine those two, the early 20s is like being an athlete, where we have this window of time to multiply. That is like no other time in our lives. And it really is about age. It's a common thing to be told, save early, right? And now this book actually, it says in a very understandable, simple and creative way for the common everyday person, this is what save early means. Like, it's going to break it down for you. The book is there to give every reader a financial epiphany.
The financial epiphany. You mentioned the belief system. I think your mother had a thing where talking about money is like talking about your underwear or something like that.
That's right.
We all kind of have these scotomas or blind spots that I imagine when you say a financial epiphany, we have to wake up from, because, and most of them were good meaning. Our moms were, putting up with us being rambunctious kids at the store. And my mom used to do a thing where she used to, we'd ask her for stuff and she'd say, I don't have enough money for this. And, clearly she had money. She was writing it. No, I'm just kidding. Callback joke. But, we wanted to buy something. She goes, we don't have enough money. And we're like, geez, are we poor? We can't afford stuff. And different scotomas like that sometimes were well-meaning and they were just trying to get us to quit being rambunctious kids. I can't blame them. And but sometimes we hold on to and we internalize those things, right?
Yeah.
And then, so we have to have that awakening, that epiphany, as you put it, to go through it. Tell us a little bit about your life. How did you grow up? What influenced you? What kind of got you down these sort of pathways and brought you to writing the book?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I would say, it always starts in the family and the parents. I had very frugal parents. They did have, a good income and for the family, and we were taken care of, but it wasn't for show. Just like my mom was saying, it was, hey, you just quietly, go about your financial business. And I thought that was a wonderful upbringing. And my father would give me certain messages. Say, like when I started my corporate job, he said, invest in your 401k. There's free money there. And it just stopped right there. So it's good advice, but I didn't understand anything beyond that. Okay, it's free money. Like, how much free money? What's happening over time? There's no understanding or calculation there.
It's free money. Now go into the world, grasshopper, and use that knowledge.
I like how you said that. I'm picturing that in my father's voice right now.
I'm seeing like the bearded guy from Kill Bill, with the long white beard.
Okay. Or Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid.
Mr. Miyagi.
Whoever your
Wax
favorite.
on, wax off,
Whoever your favorite wise mentor is, plug him in right now.
Sensei.
But sensei, that's right. So I had that example in life. Not a lot explained to me. So I started out I think this explains it for many of us. The word timidly. I started out timidly. I was doing the right thing, but timidly, not with confidence, not with gusto, not with rigor, like I'd like to see people do during their prime multiplying days. That's why I consider myself a coach, to coach people to realize that power when they've got it, this window before it passes them. But yeah, more to your question then. Worked a corporate job for a while, figure it out, down the road, I'll study money. I'll figure it out later. And that's most people. Yeah. I'll tell you what, when middle age hits, there's new things that are coming for you that, whether you like it or not, you might be taking care of your parents one day. They call it the sandwich generation. One piece of bread is going to be, am I financially taking care of my parents one day? And then there's, am I going to be sending my kids to college one day? And then there's, I think I'm going to want to retire one day. So all these things they're creeping on, and we start to take them seriously, if not before middle age, hopefully before then, but it's coming for you, and it's going to be a topic, that we're set on right then and there if we don't decide any earlier. I decided to start to study money, study the basics, everything, from emergency fund, getting rid of debt, saving for my kids' college, paying off the house, studied all these things, investing, got comfortable with it. I like to call finances and money a sheep dressed in wolf's clothing. So kind of a switcheroo on that, where when you start to get to know it, most people think they're imposters to money. Oh, I'm not supposed to understand that. That's for imposter syndrome. That's for the financial people. I never studied finances. I'm not supposed to be good at this stuff. I want to say that it's a sheep in wolf's clothing, that we all can get over that barrier. And once we do, the empowerment, the confidence starts coming, the aha moments start coming after that. So I did study it. And it was during that time, as I was reading books, going to workshops, and the doors opened, and I was no longer intimidated. A lot of people are intimidated, fearful about this topic in life. Once I got over that, I would say that I started writing in the margins of the books, and then I started writing everywhere in the books. And then I started writing in the books, maybe more than the author was. And then I thought to myself, I think it's time to start writing my own book. Yeah, I had an idea that was being triggered again and again and again and again. I just need to get one more voice out there, because it's working for me and my family. This is really, really working for me and my family, and others that I was cluing into this understanding of money. And I was like, well, let's do this book and let's spread the word and get more people financially healthy.
That's the thing I love about the show. I have a lot of people on, and I learn from almost every guest. And people are like, how does that happen? Because, sometimes you have guests on, Chris, that talk about the same thing, investing in real estate or something. And what's interesting is so many people have different paradigms of coming at a problem or a solution, and they have different ways of looking at it that can give you a much deeper experience and knowledge, and you can see things that you couldn't see before. The scotomas, as we like to call them, or thinking outside the box, or as you say, financial epiphanies, where, I've had people I know a lot about a certain subject, and they'll come on the show and they'll give me a different paradigm shift of an angle of looking at something, and I'm like, wow, I never really looked at it from that angle, and wow, somebody told me that 20 years ago.
I'm hearing that a lot these days.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate we're not. I mean, there's so many things that we need to go teach kids in high school. Absolutely. What credit is, how to manage your credit, how to buy a home, how to manage money, how to balance a checkbook. I don't think they did that when I was in high school. How to, why these things are important. There should be a psychiatrist on site to deal with any really trauma, so we can get that taken care of. And
that's the thing too.
Don't have people dragging that around. Maybe some college courses before you got married on how to be a good spouse and have a healthy relationship, resolve your trauma. There's all this stuff. Like I've never used algebra. I'm sure there's people that have, but they're probably rare. And I put them in a locker, I think, when I was in high school. No, I'm just teasing. Don't do that, folks. I think I was the one getting put in lockers. I was a pretty skinny kid. But, these are the things. And so that's why I love the shows, because the paradigm shifts and the stuff that you can learn is so amazing. And when you think you've heard it all and you've learned it all, there's somebody who can come and give you that spin. Let's talk about some of the things that we have offering on your website so that people can check that out. Let's give a quick .com plug to that again for redundancy purposes, and then let's talk about some of the things you're doing there as a coach.
Cool. Yeah, financialepiphany.com. That's the URL.
Mm-hmm. And so what offerings do you have there to help people out and to get them to wake up and have their epiphany?
That's right. Yeah. So there's a digital download, and I call it the Money Moves Guide. So that has some of the basics that everybody will need to consider if they want to multiply their money. So making a first investment or starting a brokerage account if you haven't yet already. There's getting out of debt using what's called the debt snowball. I mean, that's going to be most of us interested in that one.
The debt snowball.
Paying off the small debts and then building momentum, psychological momentum as you get through all of them, and even paying off the house in the end at some point for some of us. Other things like getting a connection and a working relationship with a financial professional, whether that be a coach or an advisor, so they can tell you where you're at. They can be that coach and that third party that says, all right, here's what I think and here's what I see from my perspective. And then also finding out an amount to aim for to save up and retire by. So an actual amount of money to save up for and retire by. Now that's in the Money Moves Guide. That's downloadable, but a lot of the site is going to point towards the principles of the book. Obviously, the book's going to explain it the most. I spent 3 years writing that thing and 10 years getting to that idea to this point and feeling, hey, this is worth sharing. So we can get into a little bit of that. There's something that I call the simple framework. And the simple framework is just before you start anything, any journey. Say you want to write a sentence, you have to have an alphabet. Before you do a math problem, you got to have numbers. So what is the simple framework for multiplying money? It's looking at all the multitude of options out there about money. Money, it's for most of us, it's running circles around us, and we can't understand it. It's this constantly moving, roving variables, and we can't nail it down. I say to money, sit down, behave, stay in one place. And with this simple framework, it freezes money long enough so we can understand it. So what is the simple framework? Basically, it's three things that we need to know if we're going to multiply money. One is, when are we starting to work? And the most common age is 22, coming out of a college education, getting into your career. So I choose the age 22. Could be 21, could be 23. Let's go ahead and pick something so we can freeze money in place. What's the average duration of a career? 40 years. Could be 39, could be 41. That's going to confuse us. Let's stick with 40. We're going to understand money by making it freeze in place. And then the last element of the simple framework is the rate of return. How much is money multiplying by? And I use the common 7.2% rate of return. And that's the money that money earns. That's what a stock earns. That's what a bond earns. If it's 7.2, which is extremely common over the long run, then we're going to choose that one, and instead of the multitude of other options out there. And with these three things, starting a career at age 22, working for 40 years, and earning a 7.2% rate of return over those 40 years, we can solve money. We now have made it freeze in place where we can have these three financial epiphanies that I'm going to tell you about. But yeah, any thoughts about that before we jump into those?
Yeah, that's really important. I heard Dave Ramsey recently say, if you're that young, around 23, you put $100 away into some sort of investment account, you'll be a millionaire by the time you're, 40, 50, 60. I like how you break it down. You give it that keep it simple, stupid sort of concept, that KISS
concept. You got it.
KISS. And you keep it, okay, so what can I operate in a framework that I can always remember 40 years, start young. And that's really when people should start because, it might be hard to build and save money at that young age, but I don't know, these days, so many people are living with their parents, I got a few relatives. They're doing pretty good living at home with their parents at Gen Z stage. But, and I'm like, make some wise investments where you can now. Because, I don't know, mom and dad might just let some people live with them forever, I suppose. I don't know. So let's get into the next step that we had there.
Okay. 3 financial epiphanies. All right. So they're like building blocks. So the first one starts out the simplest. Financial epiphany number 1 is doubling years. Now, what is that? Some of you may know of the Stanford University marshmallow experiment. And that was decades ago that it was held, where a single marshmallow was placed before a, say, 5-year-old child. And the conductor of the experiment would lean over and say, "This marshmallow, I'm going to leave the room. And if you eat it, that's all you get. But if you wait until I get back, I'm going to reward you with a second marshmallow." Now that was an experiment in delayed gratification. Those who waited got a second marshmallow. And I thought about that. I always liked that experiment, but I was like, what child is going to stop at 2 marshmallows? I pictured every child looking up to that experimenter and saying, if I waited and turned 1 marshmallow into 2, if I waited more, could I turn 2 marshmallows into 4? If I practiced patience yet again, could I turn 4 marshmallows into 8? And why not wait one more time and have 8 marshmallows turn into 16? And the funny thing about that is that doubling of marshmallows is exactly how money doubles when you use those 3 simple framework principles I just told you about. Over regular intervals of time, money doubles, just like those marshmallows. And what is that interval of time? 10 years. 10 years. Wow. You put money in once up front, and every 10 years, that thing is doubling. So if you put in $10,000, 10 years later, with the simple framework in mind, remember 7.2% interest rate, all these things, or rate of return, I should say, that $10,000, 10 years later is 20, then it's 40, then it's 80, then it's 160. And so you can start saying and applying those numbers back to our 40-year career we just talked about. You could say, oh, at 22, if I put in $10,000, if I'm lucky enough to have that amount around that age, it's going to be $160,000 when I retire. And what if I did that again and again and again? And we start to realize a single input and the single output. And that keeps things extremely simple. That we don't need a calculator for, that we do not need a financial expert to rely on once a year. That is up here, and we take it with us everywhere we go. It is that simple.
Because a lot of people do that. They like, if I want to understand finances, I got to hire a financial counselor. Yeah. And, and there's nothing wrong with that. They have really great advice. I don't want to put them down too far, but like you were saying earlier in the show, I'm trying to dramatize is that, people put things off and they're like, when the time comes, I'll do the financial counseling. Time is now. And, and the other thing I think to keep in mind for some people is that some people's timeline is shorter than others. Some people don't get a full ride through life. They don't, I remember when I was 50, I was bitching on Facebook. I was kind of doing a bitchy rant, and sometimes I do that for entertainment. And someone wrote me and they went, Chris, you really shouldn't complain about becoming 50 because there's a lot of people who would love to trade places with you right now that never made it. Sure. And I was like, yeah, I should probably shut up now. And he was right. And so,
there's wisdom in that.
So the earlier you start, the more maybe you can enjoy what you do have. No one knows. There's no guarantees in life, but there's one guarantee actually: death and taxes.
That's the popular response.
So no one gets out alive. I think it was the Doors that said that, Jim Morrison, or somebody else. Anyway, pick your internet friends. But so enjoying that sort of thing is important. The doubling and stuff of compound interest. Yeah. My father used to do this thing. I don't know if you've probably heard this analogy, but he used to do a thing where he'd say, "Would you rather have I don't remember what the numbers were, but would you rather have $1 million now, or would you rather have a penny a day for the next year or something like that?" I don't remember. People can Google what it was.
I've heard that comparison.
And we'd all be like, "Oh, let's take $1 million now. Yeah, let's do that." Because we're kids, and our dad was just playing us because we're stupid. So anyway, I'm just teasing. But he would tell people that, and then he would explain to us the power of that compounding, like you talked about with the doubling, and how that money grows and grows, and the more power it has, the more interest return ROI power that you talked about it has. It can make all the difference in the world. Yeah. Any more we want to tease out on the show before we go?
You betcha. Okay. Selling years is the foundation. It's the first financial epiphany. And then I want to talk about what I feel is the most important one, which is when we make this, once again, feel like an ability, just like an athlete. So instead of saying, if I put in some money now, $1,000, it'll be $16,000 when I retire. Instead of saying that, we flip things around. And when we do that, it forces money to pose in a now-minded way. Because a lot of people, when we think about money growing into something, that asks us to be future-minded, and many of us are not. We want instant gratification. We want now. And so when we flip things around and we say, okay, instead of $1,000 turning into $16,000 later, what if we thought, I have the multiplying power of 16 right now when I start my career. I have the multiplying power of 16. I have that ability, right? And there's this window of time when this is going to change. 10 years later, I have the multiplying power of 8. Mm-hmm. And when I'm in my early 40s, now I have the multiplying power of 4. And then in my early 50s, the multiplying power of 2. Now, once again, thinking about the simple framework, right? Mm-hmm. This 40-year career. And so when we think about multiplying power and this ability, it allows us to be a steward over it. It allows us to manage it instead of it being, oh, is it okay to accumulate money or not? Now it's about applying this superpower, even I call it. And the other thing is really important is our superpower is reducing by half every 10 years. And that takes advantage of an amazing way that humans respond to this. A loss aversion. So rather than gain $1,000, we're more afraid of losing $1,000. So in this case, what we're saying is rather than thinking about multiplying your money, think about losing your multiplying power. It's halving every 10 years. And when you hear that, when you understand that your multiplying power halves every 10 years, you're more likely to feel a sense of urgency. You're more likely to take action. And it uses loss aversion to say, you got this power of 16, now it's 8, now it's 4, now it's 2, and then maybe you're retiring and hopefully enjoying the fruits of your labor. But when you see that it's an what's called exponential decay having every 10 years, then it's like, now I have a framework for understanding what's happening. I thought I could multiply money just as well as I do now, if not better later, when I get promoted, when I'm older, when I understand it. But it's actually when we're younger. And if we teach people, it's like sports, act now. And hey, I mean, as we age, eyesight's going to go, hearing's going to go, maybe even memory. Our bones are going to creak. We all understand that. We all get that. If we start to say money multiplying is like that too, then we get it. Then we're like, oh, I thought I could do this easier later in life. But no, it's actually like athletics. It's actually planting a seed. You can't have a tree the next day. Every seed you plant now, it's going to need time to grow.
Yeah. You need time to build it. And all that stuff. And you bring up some good points on what people can plan for their life. So let me ask you this, because I'm sure, someone in the audience is listening and they go, I'm 40 now, I'm 50. Yeah. One thing, an aspect in a lot of data that's coming out right now is a lot of people, Gen X, millennials, they don't really have, they've been through some ups and downs. The millennials kind of came to fruition in 2008 with the mortgage crisis, and everyone was kind of a hard time to come out looking for a job. There's been some impact to that. COVID hit a lot of people too. It's been kind of about every 10 years we're having a kind of 10 or 20 years we have a gut punch. Yep. People have been struggling. Can your book help them, I guess?
Yeah, and what I like to say is that a big enough why can overcome any how. So to keep coming back to the athletics, if your coach is telling you, you have this capability of being the most amazing quarterback, you have the ability to be the most amazing pitcher, you have to do this. We start to figure things out. We start to make sacrifices. And here's the other thing. Let's say we found ourselves, that we discovered our multiplying power, but it was after we had a student loan. We're more likely to go gung-ho paying off that student loan if we know what's happening with our money. If we know that here's this window where if I act now, it's the most powerful time ever. And here's the other thing I want people to think about. There's freedom in all of this. There's a writer, K. Chesterton, that says, if ever I wanted to catch a train, it's only because I missed the one before. And I think that explains it for a lot of us, is that we're like, I got to do this. And we're like, whoops, missed that one. I'm going to get ready for the next one. I'm going to save up money. I'm going to buy the ticket. I'm going to pack my luggage. I'm going to check it in. And I'm going to be standing right there on the platform when the next train comes. Because, whoops, I missed the previous one. It gives us something to work towards when we understand our multiplying power, rather than going throughout life and not getting it at all and having that day of reckoning that halts us in our tracks when we're ready to retire, saying, like most retirees, the biggest regret is I wish I saved more earlier. So why don't we listen to them? They're the ones with the perspective. They're the ones, we're going to become them. And so we should be listening to them. If that's one of their biggest regrets of retirement, then let's take action.
Let's take action, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, there's we sometimes we get lost. I know sometimes we have fun. We're like, hey, I'm going to buy some new rims for the car, and I'm going to, I one thing I see that's really interesting to me, I love watching these TikToks of the financial advisors that are on TikTok, and they're like car people, car salesmen, and they help a lot of people that are upside down now in cars. And it's extraordinary how many people are upside down in cars right now because of COVID. Yeah. They bought really high when the prices went crazy during COVID. Yeah. And sometimes they bought on really crazy interest rates that you're just like, I thought the mob wasn't allowed to even charge that much. and so, you see these people and they're upside down, $30,000, $50,000, sometimes more than that. These trucks are going now for $200,000 for a pickup truck. And, and so you look at it and you're just like, what are you doing? And the payments these people are making on these cars are like, what used to be a house payment in my younger years is like $1,500. And then the insurance on the cars has gone through the roof because the cars are so expensive. And so they're paying like $500 a month or more in insurance. And so you're like, $2,000 of your monthly nut is going to some depreciating asset that's losing more money hand over fist. And it's kind of funny to watch them because the guys try and figure out how to get them out of their negative hole. Yeah. Do you want to do a lease but a lot of people, they just can't help. They're like, yeah, if you want to show up with $20,000. Yeah, and they're not getting any better situations. Sometimes they're just flipping into the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah,
it's crazy, man. It is crazy. People should definitely read your book. Get started early. Take advantage of opportunities you have there early. There's, I think the 401ks and stuff like that are still some of the greatest investments you can make. I think life insurance, I think, is good, isn't it?
What I recommend is 401ks number one, because you have the possible matching, tax advantages, time, and the market rate of return. And then after that, it's the individual retirement account, IRA, and then a brokerage account, of which you could put any sort of asset in these for the most part. So those are the three money multiplying methods that are talked about in the book. There's others, and money it's a very personal thing. What one person wants to invest in, it feels good about, is what someone else wants to stay away from. So research it. That's why I also recommend having a financial pro in your corner to say, okay, yeah, I can agree to that. Or if there's a thing that's too risky about that, then you're at least getting that advice. Yeah.
And it can't hurt to have as much good advice on your side as you possibly can. It can't hurt at all.
You got it.
So tell us how people can reach out to you, how they can onboard, give them your final pitch out, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, the URL to my website is financialepiphany.com. I definitely will respond. If you go to the contact form, you want to ask me a direct question, that's cool. And then there's links out to the book, Financial Epiphany. There is a link out to YouTube where I have videos on there. And you can listen to the lessons yourself directly there. And definitely consider downloading the Money Moves Guide on there and start your learning. That's got the financial basics. But I highly recommend, if you like what you heard, read through the book. It takes 4 hours. Now, I want you to hear this. The average person watches about 78,000 hours of television per lifetime. That's 9 years. If you're watching it consecutively around the clock, that's 9 years of your 78-year life. Now, I just want you to borrow 4 hours from that 78,000 and read a book. So consider that.
Wow. How dare you monopolize all of our time that we could be watching the Kardashians?
I know. Sorry to suggest that.
Gosh, darn it, man. How am I going to keep up with the Kardashians? I don't know. Do I get paid for plugging that stupid show? Anyway, I'm sure people enjoy it. It gives them something to do with their spare time. But I appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you sharing this with us and getting us educated so people can know better. And then do we get the .coms as we go out here?
Yeah. One more time, it's financialepiphany.com. That is the place to get everything. It points to my YouTube and the way to email me and contact me if you want. But that's the place to go to.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, Scott.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, and thanks for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. Order up his book wherever fine books are sold, Financial Epiphany. Discover your ability to multiply money and reimagine your financial life, out January 9th, 2025. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.